UFC 303. This card has been shuffled, moved around, mixed and matched so many times, but we're going to cover every single fight on this card, break them down, give a prediction for every fight on the card. All of my links are in the description, so if you feel so inclined, do check those out. I do appreciate it very much. Grab yourself a shirt, check out the Patreon, all that good stuff. Sign up for a channel membership, anything you like. And while you're down there, hit that little like button for me. We'll jump right into that first fight. And I'll see Bantamweight, Ricky Simón takes on Vinicius Oliveira. Oliveira's 4-1 in his last 5. We've got 3-2 for Ricky Simón. Interesting matchup because you look at these records, 20-3 for Vinicius Oliveira. Guy's got a lot of experience, and we look at 20-5 for Ricky Simón. The difference being Simón has been able to accumulate this record a lot in the UFC, so at a higher level. Now, don't get me wrong, that doesn't discredit the record of Oliveira. I'm just saying Ricky Simón's been here for a while, so he's fought a little bit better competition. Actually, a lot better competition. Ricky Simón has fought some of the best in the UFC. But that's not to say Oliveira it's not his time. It's not to say that. It's to say that, you know what, this guy's been here and he's proven. We're going to find out with Oliveira. Now, for Oliveira, good striker. The power is serious. That power is deadly. Guy's got kicks to all levels, and the leg kicks in particular are absolutely nasty. And I think if he can start investing in that early in this fight, that's going to help him quite a bit as the fight drags on. His punches are a bit wild, and I think a part of it's because his hands are low, but he throws these kind of like weird angled punches where they're kind of like this, and they land, and they got a ton of power, but they're kind of just odd. That's why it's got the plus minus, right? It's technically it's not super pretty, but like it gets the job done. Decent grappling as well. He's got vicious ground and pound, and he does have a decent submission arsenal if he needs it. So in this matchup, he might end up on the mat. Maybe he starts looking for a submission. I don't know if that's going to really work against Ricky Simón, but maybe it does. And if it does, that'll be very impressive. When we look at Ricky Simón, the dude's a solid wrestler. That's what you know. Now, he can strike, but he's a wrestler at his core, right? And if he goes to that, I think that's where he's going to have the most success in this matchup, as well as in most fights. He's got good takedowns, different options for his takedowns. He has a whole arsenal that he can go to, and the volume of takedowns is typically there. Now, it wasn't in, maybe his last couple of fights, particularly the Song fight, because I don't know. He just was not as adamant on getting the takedown, and that could be a problem for him. Good control once he gets the fight to the mat. Seeks the finish. Now, here's what I like, is he has kind of a system, right? Ground and pound, submission attempt. Ground and pound, submission attempt. And he just keeps cycling back and forth. He's not one of those guys that'll just be like, I just got to ground and pound this guy out, or I just got to get the submission. He'll just, between the two, just ground and pound, submission attempt. Ground and pound, submission attempt. And just keep going back and forth, and when one starts to work, that's it, right there. Go to that and finish it. But he's not stuck in his ways. Now, like I said, decent striking. It's mostly set up by his wrestling threat, right? Because he's got good forward pressure and some good power, but the wrestling threat is what makes that viable for him. He's not like the cleanest of strikers. It's not bad. Like if you put him on a heavy bag, he's not going to look terrible, but at the same time, compared to Oliveira, I think Oliveira's the better striker, and I don't think that's crazy to say. What I do think, though, is that Ricky Simón is going to the wrestling here, and I think he's going to get the takedowns. I think he's getting a decision. Now, he's going to have to watch that leg because the leg kicks are going to be nasty, and if that gets chewed up too much, those takedowns are going to be really tough to get. But I do think he gets it done, and I think he can bank at least 2 rounds. So we're going Ricky Simón, but let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next. Up next, Carlos Hernandez takes on the debuting Road to UFC champion, Ray Tsuruya. Now, I've heard a lot of people saying Ray Tsuruya's name in quite a few different ways, and I can't help but laugh. It's been rough. They're adding letters and syllables, and it's crazy. So I'm going to try and help you guys out. No shame, I understand. It's a Japanese name. If you're not from there, that's a little bit different, but are you familiar with the word tsunami and how it starts with a T? Same thing here. It's Tsuruya. So, Ray Tsuruya, I believe that's correct. Anybody from Japan in the comments or speaks Japanese, let me know I'm correct, but I'm pretty sure that's right. So, Ray Tsuruya, undefeated prospect, 9-0, obviously 5-0 in the last 5. He's taking on Carlos Hernandez, who's a tough ask for most people. He's 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Handful of losses in the career, but not that many. Not even a handful. Less than a handful of losses. The guy's pretty good, right? Ray Tsuruya, we don't know much about his striking because he just doesn't entertain that aspect of the game because he goes right to his game plan and does what he needs to do. He's an incredibly fast starter with just solid grappling. Takedown volume is absolutely relentless. He's going to just work to advance position, take the back. He's got good ground and pound. He can scramble with the best of them. His fight with Mark Climaco, which I believe is his only decision, was impressive because Mark Climaco is a very, very, very good wrestler. And especially on the regional scene, like a guy like Mark Climaco, I think gives Carlos Hernandez a heck of a fight too. I don't know who wins that. Probably, I don't know. That's a tough one. I'd have to think about that one a little bit more. But things like that, the ability to out-grapple a guy like Mark Climaco, who is specifically a wrestler, that is his go-to game plan, speaks volumes about the grappling of Tsuruya. Now, when we look at Carlos Hernandez, he's probably going to be the better striker. We're going to assume that just based on the fact that we just don't really know much about Ray Tsuruya's striking. He does not entertain it if he at all costs, he's going for that grappling, and that's what he does. But you got to assume the striking is going to be better for Hernandez. He's got good volume, good combinations. The kicks are going to be there. Durable guy. I think if he can keep this on the feet, he's going to have some success in this matchup. But he's not lost in the wrestling. The guy's got decent takedowns of his own, and he does have a really good rear naked choke. However, Tsuruya is going to be able to put that grappling pace on him here, and I think he's going to be able to get this one done. I don't know if he gets a decision that's going to be just dominant or a submission. I don't see a knockout coming. Hernandez is tough, but I could see a submission or a decision. So we're going Ray Tsuruya to get this one done. Let me know what you think. And the heavyweights here, Andrei Arlovski takes on Martin Buday. Buday is 4-1 in his last 5. 2-3 for Arlovski. Arlovski's been in the UFC for pretty much forever. Guy's got I think he's the oldest fighter in the UFC currently still fighting. He's got some of the most fight. Was he second or third for most fights in the UFC history? The dude's been around for a while, right? Year 2000 was when he entered the UFC. We are currently in the year 2024, so you do the math there. The guy's been around for a while. But he is getting older. Like I said, he's 45 years old. Martin Buday, 32, still young, especially for the heavyweight division. So we'll see how this lines up. Now, when you look at Martin Buday, the 13-2 record, you're like, man, this guy's great, right? Not so much. He's okay. He's not bad. He does some things really well, but he does other things very poorly. Like in his last fight, I believe it was his last fight, against Shamil, he didn't try to win, which was strange. Like, I understand he was outmatched, but he also just didn't try to win. So that was kind of off-putting. So maybe that was a one-off. Maybe something was wrong, but it was strange. Either way, when we look at his skills, the guy's a pretty good grappler, specifically against the cage. He's got a solid cage push. He's really good at just grinding on opponents there and just peppering them with shots and winning fights there. If he gets on top of you on the mat, yeah, he can hold you down there too. But the cage push is kind of what he likes to do, and that's what he does his best. This is his best weapon. Cage push, grind, pepper with strikes. Not the most exciting fighter, but that's his best weapon. He has decent striking, and he's got power, so he can hit you and knock you out, but his output's low, and he's wide open to counters after he throws. Now, when we look at the other side, we got Andrei Arlovski. Now, this isn't the same Andrei Arlovski that won the belt. This is a different Andrei Arlovski. He's evolved his game, changed his game. Some things are better, some things are worse. The movement is definitely better. The guy's a good striker with good movement and good volume. Those are things that he's done better as he's gotten older. Good counters, good leg kicks. Now, you see I put a question mark here by durability because, I mean, like, he's still going to decision a lot, but every now and then you just see him just get racked and wobbled and dropped bad and then knocked out. So I'm not sure what I think about the durability, because he is able to make it to go to decision quite a bit. And I don't know if a lot of that is just because of the movement, he's not getting hit flush, or if his durability is really not that bad anymore. And for a while there it was, but maybe he's figured that out. I don't know how you fix that. So I don't really know, but we put it there just in case, and I know Buday can hit pretty hard. Now, in the grappling, he's got great takedown defense, and the fight IQ for Arlovski is some of the best. Look at those fights. You know how many fights that is? That's a lot. That's some math right there. That is, 50 some odd fights, 58 fights, something like that, or 57 fights. 57 fights, unless there's some no contests that I don't know about, probably is. Either way, no contests don't usually show up on the record. But point being, Arlovski's had a lot of fights, so the fight IQ comes with that unless you take too much damage. And for whatever reason, Arlovski seems sharp, seems like he still knows what he's doing in there. So when we look at these two and how they match up, your knee jerks to go with the younger guy, the whatever. But give me one more for the road. Andrei Arlovski, split decision. Let's take it. The classic Andrei Arlovski split decision. One more for the road on his way out. We are kind of assuming he retires here at this pay-per-view, and I think he gets it done one more time. with a greasy split decision. Let me know what you guys think. Straw weights. Michelle Waterson Gomez takes on Gillian Robertson in the strawweight division. Yes, it just says Waterson. That's for the sake of the marker board. You guys understand. Either way, Gillian Robertson 3-2 in her last 5 fights. 1-4 for Waterson. She's on a 4-fight skid, which is not what you like to see, but she's been around the game for a while now. She's getting up there in age, upper 30s. It is what it is. But let's start with the breakdown here. This is a striker versus grappler, essentially. Gillian Robertson being the grappler, she's got solid jiu-jitsu. Now, she does have decent takedowns, and mostly because of her persistence and her ability just to kind of muscle through opponents at 115 pounds. Now, up at flyweight, that didn't work as well, but now down here at strawweight, she does have a little bit better takedown game because she is adequately sized. When we look at the submission ability, she is always attacking submissions. She's a rear naked choke and armbar specialist. Those are her go-tos, and she's been fantastic at both of those. Good transitions. She can move to different positions smooth, clean, without making it taxing on her physically. And she will mix in really heavy ground and pound in order to get the submissions to open up. On the feet, now she has decent striking, and I say that because she has like kind of an improving one too. And she's incredibly durable, but she's kind of just developing the striking to go along with the grappling. I would like to see her more focus on the wrestling, similar to somebody on this card like a Ray Tsuruya, where he just doesn't screw around with the striking. He wants to go to the wrestling right away. I would like to see her do that, but it's not bad to add striking to your game. Now, it's interesting because I believe she actually started learning MMA from like a cardio kickboxing class. So you'd assume she had some, like, I understand you're hitting like a punching bag, but like at the same time, like you'd think you'd have pretty good striking after like that's where you got your start. But no, she went right into the jiu-jitsu and got excellent at that. So striking's all right. It's not where you'd want to see it against a girl like Michelle Waterson, who, for Waterson Gomez, solid striker. She's got the karate hottie, right? She's got that karate style. Excellent kicks. We know that. The side kick from range, she uses that to keep her opponents, at distance, and she'll throw it from either leg, the front leg or the back leg, and she does a very good job at using that. Now, she doesn't have a ton of power, but she's able to use that side kick, and it feels powerful because a lot of times their opponents are coming forward and they run right into it just like a spear, and it elevates them and pushes them back. That is what's going to make her seem powerful, and she might get a couple of knockdowns like that. Basically, just take her opponent off the feet. It's not like a knockdown like you're rattled, but it's a knockdown like, oh man, I just ran into this leg that lifted me off the ground and dropped me on my butt. That's what happened. So the side kick is there for her. She gets some good front kicks, some good roundhouse kicks, things like that. But the side kick is probably her best because it's going to have the most impact on the fight overall. Now she can change levels on that. She can go to the body, she can go to the head, but it's hard to land a side kick flush on the head. That is tricky. But she'll also throw it to the leg, and if you throw a side kick to the leg, that can blow out a knee. So you got to be careful not to run into that. Now she uses the range really well, and I think this is going to be what she needs to do in this matchup. Look a little right here. Those are the things she's going to have to focus on in this matchup because she doesn't want Robertson to get close, because if Robertson gets close, she's going to probably get the takedowns. Now, although Waterson Gomez can grapple, she has decent wrestling, decent takedowns, decent top pressure. On the mat, it's not going to be close. And honestly, I think that this fight favors the age, it favors the physicality, and I think it favors the grappling upside of Gillian Robertson, and she's going to get this one done. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Matchup between a couple of bantamweight strikers. Payton Talbott takes on Yanis Ghemmouri. Ghemmouri's 4-1 in his last 5 fights, 5-0 for Talbott. As you see, he's 8-0 on the career. Now, here's the deal. Ghemmouri kind of had an odd finish in his last one with the TKO that really shouldn't have been a TKO. So I don't really count that against him, right? Okay, 'cause he didn't get TKO, he got kicked in the groin. So it is what it is. But for Ghemmouri, dude is a pretty good striker, right? He has a lot of tools that I think will give him some success in this fight. The guy's a good striker with good leg kicks. The leg kicks, I think, are going to give him a lot of success. We'll cover that in just a moment right there. We'll cover that in just a moment. He's got good front kicks and knees up the middle that can slow down the pressure of a forward pressuring opponent, which, check that out here in just a minute as well. He's got good counter striking ability, but he is patient, which is good and bad. Because sometimes he's a little too patient, and what happens is he lets his opponents kind of start to throw more volume and can start getting outlanded. Now, he's only lost twice in the career, one of which being total BS, but he is, good at picking his counter shots, but in a fight with someone that puts a lot of pressure and volume coming at you, sometimes being patient is a problem. So that's why it goes both ways there. Decent takedown defense as well. I think this is going to be a striking match for most of it. Ghemmouri's good. He's not a bad fighter whatsoever. He has some tools that I think are going to help him in this matchup, and he's a massive underdog if you didn't already know. Now we'll look at the other side. Payton Talbott, solid striker with good forward pressure, and he just uses it to break his opponents. But like I said, front kicks and knees up the middle. That is a good way to slow down the forward pressure of an opponent. If you stick them to the body with that front kick, you can only eat so many of those before you say, oh my gosh, I can't walk into that again. It's why the Greeks and Macedonians back in the day would use the phalanx formation where they had all their spears, right? They have their shields and their spears, and they'd have the spears sitting on the shields, and they'd make like this wall of spears, right? For any of you that knows what the heck I'm talking about, drop that in the comments. Either way, so you have these big, the wall of spears, essentially. Everybody's linked up right next to each other, and they would just walk forward with this wall of spears. You can only run into those spears so well, right? Like, you got to try to dodge this wall of spears and try to get inside, because you couldn't really hit him. It was like an impenetrable just wall of spears. And with the shields on in between, it made it really tough to do any damage unless you went around the outside. That's exactly what you have to do to stop somebody that's just got those front kicks down the middle, those knees down the middle. That's what you got to do. This floor is a little slippery there. You gotta be able to go around the outside of that attack. Now, do I think Talbot can do that? Absolutely, I think he can. But the skill set is there to help him slow down that pressure. And then we'll have to see if he's able to implement this anyway. We'll have to see if Talbot can adjust to that, because so far nobody's stopped him from coming right up the middle. Got good volume, good power, does Talbot. He's got good knees, middle of the combo, so like he'll start with the hands, throw the knee, and then just keep going with the hands, which is something you like to see. Mixes up the levels on his strikes. That's always good. His striking defense is horrible. He just kind of gets hit, and his leg kick defense is even worse, which is another problem. The leg kicks are going to be something that Ghemmouri can use. Now, Ghemmouri, if you get in his face, he's going to have some trouble. But like I said, he's going to be able to use that front kick a little bit here. Now, Talbot's durable, so he can take these shots, right? We've seen him take some big shots before. He's still young enough in the career at only 8-0 that I don't think the damage is starting to accumulate. If this fight does start to get in the grappling, his takedown defense isn't great, but he bounces right back up, and that kind of breaks the will of the person shooting takedowns, because if you shoot a bunch of takedowns and your opponent just keeps getting back up, it's kind of demoralizing. I've been there before. So the cardio and pace of a guy like Talbot's going to help him a lot here. Now, like I said, Ghemmouri has some things he can use in this fight to really help him out. And I don't think that's going to get him the win. I am picking Talbot. But what I do think is that this is going to extend the fight a little bit. I think if he goes to this game plan, uses that front kick down the middle, that teep, if you will, but treats it more like a spear, rather than just kind of like, using it to like keep him back, treats it like a spear and drives that sucker, right? Goes forward with it, and he uses that to slow down the forward pressure of Talbot. Talbot's going to have to take a minute to say, okay, how am I going to get around this? He can draw it out, get the guy to throw the front kick, and then come down the middle, or go around the outside, which is what a lot of times is what you're going to want to do. You're going to have to come in, shuck to the side of the leg, and go around the outside, or feint middle, shoot outside, finish out with a shot around from an angle. So for me, I'm taking Talbot, but I think he gets it done late. I think it's gonna be a late second, third round, something like that. I do think that the kicks up the middle, the leg kick accumulation, which Talbot hasn't really slowed down from that yet. I think that kind of stuff is just gonna make this fight a little bit closer in the early goings, and then it's gonna be more Talbot as the fight goes on. But let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. Featherweights here. John Silva takes on Charles Jourdain. In this one, it's interesting because we got the surging Silva. The guy's 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Impressive 12-2 record. He's taken on kind of a bit of a guy that's been up and down in the UFC. He's 2-3 in his last 5 is Charles Jourdain. Now, Jourdain, 15-7-1 on the career. So that's kind of like, you could tell he's been around the block a little bit, had some fights. But here's the thing. He's fought the much higher level competition. So when we look at these two, we're comparing John Silva's record, which is beautiful, right? 12-2 is a great record, 5-0 in the last 5, to Jourdain, who's been fighting some of the tougher guys in the division for quite some time. I mean, close fight with Shane Burgos, close fight with Sean Woodson. Sean Woodson's looked pretty darn good lately. So things like, he's been there, done that. He fought the... Never mind, we're not even going to bring up that fight. So let's go ahead and break down skill for skill, and then I'll kind of just reintroduce introduce the level of competition and see what I think that means for this fight. Do I think that that's going to matter? So let's start with John Silva. Guy's a good striker. Good forward pressure. He just kind of outdogs his opponents and just like intimidates them on the feet sometimes. And we saw him do that a bit in his Contender Series fight, and then also that Weston Wilson fight, but we can leave that one for what it is. But what he does is he just comes forward and he just is aggressive and shows no respect to his opponents, which has worked very well for him thus far. He's got plenty of power, very accurate when he throws, and he's got a quick head kick that you just don't see it coming. It's good head kick. Very light on the toes even, which is strange for a guy that's just coming forward like the way he does, but it's an interesting style. Keeps his hands low, and that could be a problem for him, but I think part of that, it does help with the style, because when he comes in, get light on those toes, and then he'll throw these big shots from different angles. You don't know what's really coming, but the hands low could leave his face wide open and get a shot to it, so that's that. Grappling, we don't know a ton yet. We haven't seen him have to grapple much, but he does have a quick guillotine from what I've seen. There are not a lot of his regional fights available, or at least that I can find. Maybe you guys can, and if so, let me know. But from what I've seen, this is what we've got. We've had a sample size in the UFC now. For Jourdain, dude's a good striker, right? We all know this. He's got good volume, good movement, puts together good combinations, that kicks to all levels. That front kick that he has, the Sparta kick, that's a good move for him. He uses that very well, and I think in this fight it's actually going to be a successful move for him to slow down that pressure of Silva should he choose to use that. Now, in the grappling, I do think that he can hold his own there as well. I think he probably is the more skilled grappler overall, maybe, but it's yet to be seen. We just haven't seen a lot yet. So I'm assuming that Silva's more of a striker based on what we've seen him go to in his game plan, but I could be wrong. Then again, Jourdain's a good grappler. Good front choke series. A lot of times he catches people shooting sloppy takedowns and gets those chokes. That's what he goes for there. Very active from his back, looking for submissions, looking for sweeps, things like that, but he's also safe on top, and we saw that displayed very well in the Kron-Gracie fight, a fight which a lot of people thought the specialist was going to be able to get him, myself included. I thought, okay, the jiu-jitsu, Jourdain's usually his fight IQ is usually kind of dumb, and he's usually willing to play the other fighter's game, but he didn't in that fight, and he stayed safe on top and was just minded his P's and Q's and did not do anything silly, and because of that, he showed some better fight IQ, all right? Because I used to have a big negative fight IQ thing here. He's shown better fight IQ as of late, so I do like that. His takedown defense is still not very good, so take that for what it is. And he does kind of come on late in fights. I didn't put the slow starter because he doesn't even necessarily start slow, but he does definitely pick it up late in fights. When round 3 hits, Jourdain, you know he's going to give his best round. So that's something to take into account. For me, now it comes down to this. 2 and 3 is a bit of a red flag in the last 5, but he's had very close fights, a lot of split decisions. A lot of people thought he beat Shane Burgos. It was real close. Yeah, could go in either way. Depends if you're looking damage or control, things like that. John Silva, he's beaten, okay competition, but nowhere. Does John Silva get a split decision with Shane Burgos? Is John Silva going to split decision with Sean Woodson? I know MMA math doesn't work, but you just got to think about the level of competition. I think Charles Jourdain is going to be able to get this one done, even though he's 2 and 3 in his last 5, even though he's been up and down in his UFC career. I think he's going to be a bit of a vet lesson. I think he's going to turn it on late, and I think he probably gets a round 3 finish. So give me Charles Jourdain. Not the most confident pick on the card, but I'm taking him, and we're going to believe in him. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you in the next featherweight that I both love and hate. We have Cub Swanson taking on Andrei Fili. Now, I love this matchup because I think it's well matched. Good fight. I hate it because I hate to see either guy lose. You know what I mean? You like both of them. How do you not like either of these guys? We've got Andrei Fili. He's 2 and 3 in his last 5 fights, 3 and 2 on the Swanson side. Although that probably should be 2 and 3. I don't know so much about that Dowdy fight, but either way, even fight as far as this goes. As far as records, as far as kind of where they're at, pretty even there. Now Fili's gonna be the younger guy by 6 years, I think it is. So there is the age on his side, but it's not I don't think it's just going to be drastic. I don't think that's going to be something that you're going to notice right away. So for this one here, we got Andrei Fili, one of my favorites. So bear with me if I'm a little biased. He's one of my favorites in the UFC. He's just outside of my top 5 favorites. He's 6 or 7. You know what I mean? So Andrei Fili, guy's a good striker. He uses his length very well, and he's able to pressure fighters while maintaining the range. That's impressive because a lot of people can't do that. You look at somebody that fought just last week, like Johnny Walker. The guy's got all this range, but if he tries to pressure, he can't maintain his range. You get close. Fili can maintain range while pressuring, so that's something that you like to see. Very effective with his kicks as well, but his striking defense has let him down in the past. That's something that he's going to need to worry about here because, Cub Swanson hits pretty hard. But the effective kicking game right here, we saw just recently Cub Swanson not handling the leg kicks very well, and I think Andrei Fili can go to that in this one. So in the grappling department, he's a good grappler, opportunistic takedowns. He has that wrestling kind of in his back pocket that he doesn't go to early and often like he maybe should in some fights, but he has it there, and he can use it. Excellent in the scrambles. He uses his length very well on the mat as well. He's got those long, lanky arms and legs, you know what I mean? But his takedown defense isn't the best. I don't think he needs to worry about that. I think Cub's going to want to stand and trade. Now, for Cub Swanson, dangerous in the pocket, incredibly dangerous in the pocket. Now, if he can get in the pocket, get inside that length, he's going to have all the advantages here because this is where Cub Swanson's going to want this fight. Not at the end of Andrei Fili's punches. He wants to be inside of that long straight. And once you're in there on the guy with the lankier arms, the damage, the power, it's not there. So Cub is going to want to get a good side. He's got good counters, good head movement, and he's got kicks to all levels. The guy's a nasty body kick, good leg kicks, snaps him up to the head as well. Here's the deal though. He's incredibly heavy on his lead leg, and a lot of that comes from that head movement that he uses because it's that boxing kind of style a lot of the time, and that's the problem for him. That's where the effective kicks come into the leg because he's very heavy on that leg. Now, when we look at the grappling, Swanson's got good trips and throws, very judo-esque style. I don't know if he has a judo background that I just don't know about, but he has very good judo-style trips and throws. Good ground and pound, and I hate guillotines. They don't really work very well, but he has a good one that he uses to get back to his feet. He doesn't finish the guillotine often, but he'll threaten the guillotine to get the opponent to then, instead of control, fight the guillotine, and then Swanson gets back up. So that's what he does there. I have to go with Fili. I don't know if it's because I like the guy and I'm rooting for him, or the age, or it's a close fight. Just stay away. I'm going to crack open a nice cold root beer, kick my feet up on the coffee table, and I'm going to watch this fight as a fan and enjoy it, hopefully, unless we see somebody just get absolutely starched and then their career ends sadly. But I'm taking Andrei Fili. Let me know what you have, and I'll see you next. Joe Pyfer takes on Marc-Andre Barriault. Let me know if I got that right. Barriault? Is that how you say it? For all you Canadians, let me know in the comments. For Barriault, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. 4-1 for Pyfer. That only loss being that step up against Jack Hermanson, that big step up in competition for him. Not the worst look. I mean, Hermanson's a tough ask for a lot of people, so not the worst look. I mean, he did okay. For Barriault, 3-2. He's a guy that kind of just outpaces people and just outworks them, and he's in a lot of close fights. When we look at this one, let's break down the skill set. For Barriault, decent striking, the forward pressure and the volume is really what does it, but his striking defense isn't very good. He is pretty durable. Probably could have mentioned that, but I didn't put it on there. But he is durable. You can hear me say it. Good volume, good forward pressure, and just kind of outworks guys. He's got decent wrestling. It's the cage push that gets it done a lot of the times, because what he does is he pushes guys against the cage and just kind of dirty boxes them up with these uppercuts and stuff. And he can win minutes that way. He can cause some damage that way. But the high motor, that right there, that is his best weapon. That's why they call him the power bar, right? On the other side, Joe Pyfer, good striker with good forward pressure, plenty of power. He rips the body really, really well. And he has that solid in the pocket style. Like when you get him in tight in the pocket in that close boxing range, that's where Pyfer's landing these big shots. Now, sure, he can hit you good at range, but in the pocket, that's where it gets gritty, right? And that's where Pyfer does a good job. Grappling, pretty good there. Good, powerful takedowns. Good control. The ground and pound's obviously pretty heavy. And he's got a tight squeeze when he goes for a submission. I think it's Joe Pyfer. I think new gloves be darned. I think Pyfer's getting a knockout here. I think he's going to be able to land the big power shots. I think the power bar is going to walk into some heavy stuff. And I think Joe Pyfer gets it done. But let me know what you think, and I will see you. Welterweights, Ian Machado Garry takes on Michael Page. 4-1 for Page, 5-0 for Garry. Garry is undefeated at 14-0. Again, marker board space, we're just going with the single last name. He's Garry on this one. It's okay. We understand that he has the hyphenated name. Now, For Michael Page, the guy is 4-1. Like I said, the 2 losses, those come over in Bellator, right? Now he's here in the UFC. Very impressive showing in his first fight. But this is only his second fight in the UFC. Now, Garry's been in the UFC for longer, although he's only got 14 professional MMA bouts. He's been in the UFC for longer than Page. Now, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Garry's looked very good in most of these. A couple of them have been dicey. He's had a few rough spots, but he's looked pretty good overall. Now, the age is big on the side of Garry. This is going to be the thing that I think sways a lot of people, is the fact that 26 to 37 is a huge, huge deal, and 37 years old is not what you want to be at welterweight. However, they're both like 6'3" or whatever, but the range, the reach, 79-inch reach. That's a 5-inch reach advantage for Page. For MVP. We're going to start calling him the MVP, all right? So for MVP, 79-inch reach. He's going to be able to use that very well in this matchup just based on the style that he has. And let's go ahead and get into that. He's got a solid point karate style of striking where he's got his hands low and he kind of does this little bounce back and forth thing. And he keeps his hands like wide and low. Now that helps him with his takedown defense. He can boom right there, but it also helps him bring those punches at odd angles, which I will highlight as we go. Right there, punches at odd angles. So he does punch from down here, but he's able to hit guys at a long range because of this here. He's got nasty kicks as well off of either leg, whether that be the front leg or the rear leg is what I mean by that. And he can kick at all levels. So the guy has excellent kicks, excellent fast hands, that speed is there, good movement. He just kind of darts in, lands his shots, and darts out. Not with his hands up, I don't know why I did that. His hands are down low. Darts in, lands his shots, and gets back out. He does a good job there. He's got good counter-striking ability as well, and guys have a hard time getting in on him to land strikes. He also forces his opponents to be very low volume because of that style. He relies a lot on his head movement and ability to dart in and out. That is how he tries to not get hit, but he does a good job with it. It's very odd. Not many people can get away with this style, but MVP does it very well. He's also got decent takedown defense. We've seen it tested in Bellator, and he's done pretty good in those instances. We look at Ian Garry. Ian Garry, solid striker as well. Very accurate, good combinations, good volume. He can strike to all levels, whether that be with the punches or the kicks. He mixes it up extremely well. The low kicks, the high kicks, the punching combinations, all of that changes levels very well. One thing he struggled with is he leaves his chin up when he backs out of the pocket. Now, I don't know that he's going to end up in the pocket here because of the way the MVP strikes. I don't know that we're going to get a lot of pocket exchanges. So I don't know that this actually even will matter whatsoever in this fight because just the style. So, take that for what it is. But Garry is very durable, and he recovers quickly when he's rattled. We saw that in the Song Kanan fight. The guy just bounces right back, okay? He does have a judo background, and on the regional scene we saw it, he's able to mix in takedowns when his opponents are expecting strikes. Ultimately, I think we get a striking matchup here because I think the takedown defense is good enough that Garry's not going to trust his takedown ability, and I think he's going to try and strike with MVP, especially with the way that he fights. He kind of draws opponents into a striking match. I really, really, really have a hard time with this one. It's another one to stay away, right? For me, it's a stay away because the age is a big red flag on the MVP side, but the striking skill for skill, I think Page is better. I think he's going to be able to force Garry to be low volume, and I think the things that Page lands are going to look better to the judges, and I think it's just going to be I think it's going to be enough. We're going MVP decision. Probably a split decision, though, and probably one that you really aren't sure about when the cards start getting read. So give me MVP, but let me know what you have in the comments below. Like the video while you're down there, and I'll find ourselves in the women's bantamweight division. Mayra Bueno Silva takes on Macy Chiasson. Chiasson 3-2 in her last 5 fights, 3-1 in a no contest for Bueno Silva. The height and reach, big in favorite of Chiasson. She's 5'11" with a 72-inch reach, which is pretty big for bantamweight, and she's going against the 5'6", 66.5-inch reach of Bueno Silva. For Bueno Silva, she used to be a flyweight. She's now up at bantamweight. She's had some trouble making weight down at flyweight. She's kind of a thicker frame to her, but she's going to be outsized here as far as height, reach, and Chiasson's not exactly the smallest girl either. So I think the size is going to be big for the favor of Chiasson in this one, which could pose some problems for a lot of reasons. Now, when we look at Chiasson's striking, she's a good striker with good volume, not like exceptional volume, but she typically is outlanding her opponents with her volume. She's landing more than her opponents, and she does so at a pretty decent clip. Good range use, so she's able to stick outside and stick that jab. That jab at range, if she can just jab and move, I think she's going to have a lot of success, because when you look at this here, using that range, what does that mean? Well, it's because if she's able to jab and move, she's able to land before Bueno Silva is even in range to even hit anything, right? So for Bueno Silva to land, she has to cross a danger zone in which she is not offensive. She simply is just having to play defense on the way in until she can land her own offense. So that this big of a, size difference is going to play a big role. So the stick and the jab at range for Chiasson is going to be a good, good tool for her. Maybe drop the 1-2 as she starts to land the jab a bit. The wrestling, good wrestling here as well. She's got a good cage push, and she controls very well from there. Decent takedowns when she wants to go to them, and she's got very good ground and pound on top. Now, she needs to watch out, though, because if she starts using those takedowns, that could be a problem for her. We're going to cover that in just a minute. I think the cage push is a better spot for her to try to win minutes in the grappling of this fight. Now, when we look at Bueno Silva, no, she does not have the ability to land at range. However, as she crashes in, she's got good forward pressure, which is going to help out quite a bit. She puts together combinations. She's got very good kicks. She can land them to the legs. She can land them to the body. And they're very ferocious kicks. And I think that's going to be something good once she can get past that range, if she can get past that range without taking too much damage. With the jiu-jitsu, she's very good in that realm as well. Very quick to attack submissions, arm bars, things like that, but off of her back. She isn't likely to end up on top because she lacks the ability to get open mat takedowns. However, if Chiasson decides to go for a takedown and end up on top, she needs to really be careful, because Mayra Bueno Silva is very skilled off of her back. Now, sure, Chiasson could be winning minutes on top, but it only takes one, and just that's it. Long, lanky arms like Chiasson has, easy to armbar, things like that. Bueno Silva is very skilled with that armbar off of her back. So what am I thinking here? How do I think this fight plays out? Here's what I see. The first round, we're going to get a lot of cage pushing, because Chiasson is going to use her cage push to grind on and control Bueno Silva, because her cardio has faded in the past. That's something that's plagued her in many of her fights. So for Chiasson, if she can slow this fight down but grind on Bueno Silva, make her really work to try to get free and land some strikes or whatever, Chiasson's probably going to bank the first round. Neither fighter taking a lot of damage, but the pressure and just kind of grindingness of Chiasson is going to help her get that first round banked. Then after that, second round comes out, she's going to start working that jab at range. And I think MBS at that point is going to be just a little bit tired. She's going to be a little bit slower, and she's going to have a hard time closing the distance. She might be able to edge it out at the end of the second round, get the second, but the third round, she's going to be too tired, and Chiasson's going to go right back to that jab. And we're going to see at least 29-28, possibly 30-27 decision for Macy Chiasson. And I know a lot of people are thinking, what about the tie clinch from Bueno Silva with her up against the cage, clinching? Pinky brought this up. Pink Floyd brought this up in our Twitter DMs. We were chatting, and said that Bueno Silva is good in the clinch. Yes, she is. However, Chiasson prefers that more wrestling / judo style, like one under, one over type of clinch, as opposed to the tie plum. The tie plum is what Bueno Silva wants. I don't think she's going to be able to get that on Chiasson here. I think it's going to end up being more of that like chest to chest, up against the cage, grindy style. And I think that's going to favor Chiasson. So I think she's got this one. I think she's going to be able to use the cage push in the first round and use that jab at range in the second and third. But let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below. We've got Roman Dolidze. He's taking on Anthony Smith in the light heavyweight division. And this fight has come about from some crazy happenings. We all know how it is. Everybody else is going to tell you the same thing, so I'm not going to go over that again. But if you want to know, let me know in the comments, and I'll tell you down there. But 3-2 in the last 5 for Dolidze, 2-3 for Anthony Smith. Now, when you look at these two records, it's very clear that one fighter has a lot more experience than the other. Anthony Smith, 38-19 on the career, 12-3 for Dolidze. But they're the same age, so that is just wild to me. But Dolidze has a grappling background prior to MMA, so there is that. But when we look at these two, the experience is different. Last 5 fights, pretty similar. It's an interesting matchup. Both guys taking on short notice. Dolidze is typically a middleweight. Smith is a former middleweight. There's a lot going into this one, right? So for Anthony Smith, the guy's a good striker. He's got good striking, good striking when he's moving forward. When he's moving downhill, moving forward, coming at his opponent that way, Anthony Smith can strike very well. When he's moving backward, it's not very good, because what happens is you end up getting back up against the cage like so, And he starts doing this thing where he covers up and he starts throwing these little front kicks to keep people away. And then he gets hit a lot. And he needs to not do that in his fights. He hasn't done it in the last few, which is good. But anytime you see him starting to do that, you know that's the end is near. Because Anthony Smith cannot strike with his back up against the cage like that. And he's a sitting duck. But when he's moving forward, the guy is very, very good. And he also uses his elbows extremely well. When his opponents try to close that distance on him as he's coming down, he'll start slamming these elbows just right into their face and does a great job at using that to stop their forward momentum and continue his forward momentum. He's got an excellent snapping front kick that he whips at kind of an upward trajectory like that, underneath the ribs, hits it to the body, sucks the life right out of you. So he does a very good job there. But he can't defend a leg kick to save his life, and his striking defense in general has I guess been hindered because of that. Because if you can't defend the leg kicks, what happens is you start kind of reaching down for him, and then you get hit up top as well. Thankfully for Smith, he's incredibly durable, but the leg kicks just they do something different to him, right? But I mean, this is the same guy that against Glover Teixeira, teeth knocks out, dude hands him to the referee, like, hey, hold these for me. Dude's still in the fight for a while, right? So I mean, the guy's tough as an old leather boot. Let's put it that way. That's Anthony Smith for you. So he has a lot of pros and a lot of cons in his striking, but I would say overall he's a good striker. Grappling, very good grappler as well. He's got an extremely large toolbox. This guy is slicker on the mat than people give him credit for. He's got a good submission arsenal, very, very good ground and pound, but the biggest problem is a lot of times he's content to work from his back and just gives up minutes from there. Anthony Smith is a guy who will lose minutes in a lot of fights because his back is either on the mat or against the cage. If he can avoid putting his back on objects, Anthony Smith wins a lot of fights. On paper, if Anthony Smith could avoid putting his back on objects, the guy would be undefeated. That's not actually true, but I really wanted to say that. Anthony Smith, seriously though, if he doesn't put his back to the cage or on the mat, if he just and isn't content to stay there, I mean, if it touches there, that's whatever. But like if he's not content to stay in those spots, Anthony Smith's record looks a whole lot better. Those are just the two positions he's willing to stay for much longer than he needs to. When we look at Dolidze, he's not the best striker, but it's decent, right? And a lot of that's because people don't want to mess with his grappling, because his grappling is very, very good. He's got a decent 1-2, and he's very powerful, and that 1-2 is going to set up takedowns, which we'll cover in a minute. But he's also got a good step-in knee that you don't really see a lot from guys that aren't the cleanest strikers. But Dolidze has that, and that step-in knee is pretty good. I do like that a lot, and it stops a lot of guys from getting in close on him and working in the pocket, things like that, and it gives him the space to work on the feet. Now, I don't know that space is what he wants against Smith, because Smith's a good range striker, but it is there for him. Now, the grappling department, although Anthony Smith's a good grappler, I think Dolidze's probably just a little bit better. However, Smith's going to be bigger, and that might, when skills are close, size makes a big difference. So, although I think Dolidze is probably the better grappler on paper, I will say that Smith's probably going to have a little bit more size in this matchup, and that might give him enough of an edge that it's going to be hard for Dolidze to really move him around in those positions, and he's going to instead have to move around Smith. Now, a little tangent here, I don't want to go too far off, but that's the thing. So, like, I've recently gotten back into doing jiu-jitsu in the gi, and, you know, really just, like, attending class more often, right? And the thing is, when you're going with somebody that's bigger than you, it's different than somebody that's your size or smaller. Like, somebody your size or smaller, you can move them, right? And you can move them into positions. But when someone's a lot bigger than you, you have to move around them. So, like, for example, if I'm trying to escape from bottom position on somebody that's my size or smaller, I can, you know, bridge up, create space, and they move, and then we create the scramble, or we switch positions, whatever. However, if someone is quite a bit bigger than me, it doesn't matter that I try to move. I can't just like bridge up and create space because they're just bigger than me, right? So what I have to do then is move around them, and they're treated like a tree that's rooted to where it's at, and I have to climb that tree as opposed to just moving them, if that makes sense. I hope you guys grasp that. So I do think that's going to cause him a little bit of problems because Smith's going to be the bigger guy, even though they're similar in size on paper. But either way, Dolidze, large toolbox. His takedowns come at the end of his strikes, and it's supposed to be that 1-2. It's just the 1-2 into the takedown. That I do like for him quite a bit. This is a big deal because I think he's going to be able to take down Anthony Smith with that. If he goes to the 1-2 into the takedown, I think that's going to be great for him to take down Anthony Smith unless he runs into a front kick to the face. But he's got excellent sweeps on the bottom, so if he does get taken down, I do think he can sweep here. I think he's got an excellent submission arsenal, and that heel hook is deadly. Ultimately, this fight's going to come down to a couple of things. What style of Anthony Smith are we getting, and how big is that size difference? Anthony Smith's the wild card because you don't really know what you're going to get from him. Sometimes he shows up and looks amazing. Sometimes he shows up and looks terrible. Sometimes he shows up and you're like, oh, all right. He's just so across the board. I think he gets it done. I think the size is going to help him a bit. I think he has the better striking, as long as he's not just moving backwards. And I don't think that the output of Dolidze is enough to really make Smith move backwards consistently. I think the grappling is close enough that with the added size, I know I keep saying the size. Dolidze is a middleweight. I know he's a big middleweight, but he was preparing for a middleweight fight coming up. He's now here at 205. Anthony Smith was once a middleweight, but the dude almost had to die to get down to middleweight. He's now at 205, and he's a thicker 205 at this point. So the size is going to be a thing. I got to lean Anthony Smith, but let me know what you think. And actually, real quick, like the video if you haven't yet, by the way. I would really appreciate that. But real quick, how funny would it be? I know that so many people would hate this, but how funny would it be if on fight night something happens, Yuri has to pull out, he gets food poisoning or something, right? And they're like, yo, Anthony Smith, why don't you step into the main event, fight Alex Pereira? Because, my goodness, wouldn't that be something? Guys, I know that I want to see it. I think it'd be hilarious. But either way, I like the chaos. But for this one, we're taking Anthony Smith. Let me know what you think.
Ladies and gentlemen, the short notice co-main event of the evening. Now, this is a last reminder. Do me that favor. Hit that like button. I know it's a pain in the butt if you're watching this on like a TV or something. If you can do that for me, I'd really appreciate it. It does help the channel quite a bit. And maybe you found this video useful, and that's just a good way to return the favor. If you're feeling really wild, you can go ahead and hit that share button. Share this with your Twitter audience, your Facebook audience, if anybody uses that anymore, your Instagram audience, TikTok even. I don't know. Do people watch? I don't know how TikTok works. I don't have it. But share this video. Send it to a friend. Whatever you want to do. I would appreciate it. Now, let's go ahead and break this down. We got the featherweights. Diego Lopes or Lopes. I can't decide what I think that actually is. He's Brazilian, so that makes me think that it should be Lopes, but everybody calls him Lopes, so maybe it's Lopes. Either way, Diego Lopes, we're going to go with that. Takes on Brian Ortega. Now, Ortega's last 5, 2 and 3, does not look that great, but you got to think of the level of competition this guy's been fighting and the people he's losing to. It's not like he's losing to guys that don't belong, right? Like Volkanovski, Max Holloway, stuff like that. Like the 2 and 3, his 3 losses are to the elite of the elite. This is a perfect example of one fighter has been fighting the highest level in the UFC, and one fighter is just not quite there yet. I believe he will be at some point fighting that level of guys. Maybe this is that entry to that. So 4 and 1 for Diego Lopes. Obviously, the better 5 on in. The one loss being to Movsar Evloev, which he could have won that fight if he wasn't so nice. Because let's be honest, he had that knee straight and clear out on Evloev, but he didn't tuck the ankle under the armpit. If he did, he'd have snapped the leg in 2. And no matter how tough you are, if your leg snaps in 2, there's a pretty good chance the ref steps in. So when the time expires, Evloev's already banked some rounds. Lopes could have won that just by breaking the dude's knee. Just saying. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe the ref wouldn't have stepped in, but I think he would have given him a good shot. But he was nice enough to just kind of crank on it and give the guy a minute to tap. It was too late, ran out of time. Should have snapped it in 2. Lopes could have been riding a 5-0 winning streak and coming into this one. So, but either way, let's break this down. Diego Lopes, solid jiu-jitsu. In fact, both of these guys are solid in the jiu-jitsu, but we're going to get to that in a minute. Solid jiu-jitsu, very large toolbox. He's extremely opportunistic, whether that be it for submission attempts or for transitions. The guy can just kind of see something, pop on it right away. As soon as you give him anything, he takes it. And he's extremely active from his back as well as on top from his back. His striking, I'd say he's probably going to be the better striker in this matchup. Now, when we look at Diego Lopes, good forward pressure, tons of power, volume is there, the kicks are there, but he is a bit wild, and that's something that you're going to have to take into account. However, he's a faster starter in this fight, and that's going to be something that's going to be important because when we look at Brian Ortega typically takes the first round to get beat up a bit, which I don't know why he likes to do that, but he does that. In like most of his fights, he seems to just take the first round to get beat on. The dude's got solid jiu-jitsu, though. In fact, I don't know who has the better jiu-jitsu out of these two. We haven't really seen them against comparative level of competition, but they're both just like elite level jiu-jitsu. Very large toolbox, extremely slick transitions. He's probably got the better control of the two, I would say. Very good choke arsenal. He has a nasty guillotine, and this is coming from somebody that thinks guillotines are silly. Got excellent triangle. They call him T-City for a reason. He has good striking now. Now, he had to learn to strike. Thankfully, Max Holloway was so kind as to teach him how to do that in that brutal beatdown. But Brian Ortega saw that, said, oh, shoot, I just got beat up on the feet by this guy. I need to now learn how to strike. So that's what he did. His grappling threat sets up the striking a little bit. He's got good combinations, good front kicks, and his durability helps quite a bit. Like, this man is incredibly durable. This guy can take a beating and just keep coming. However, you can only do that for so long. You can only take that beating for so long before the chin cracks. This might be the fight, right? I mean, like, the guy can't just go in there and just, like, he's had a ton of injuries. He can't just go in there and keep taking these beatings and then, you know, winning later in the fight. Even against Yair Rodriguez in his last fight, takes a beating in the first round, right? Sure, he rolled his ankle on his way to the cage, which, you know, there is that. But still, takes a beating in the first round, comes out and wins in the second. But I'm going to take Diego Lopes, and I think he's going to get this one done. I think he knocks him out. I think when Brian Ortega's in there getting his beating in the first round like he likes to do, I think it's just going to be too much, and I think the chin's going to crack, and I think we get Diego Lopes getting that knockout. Give me him for the win. It's a good fight, though, a fun fight. It should be fireworks from the second that it starts. Let me know what you have, and I will see you guys in the next.
With that, we find ourselves in the main event, but you've probably already seen me break this fight down. I do have a full, in-depth prediction of this main event. If you haven't watched that already, it's going to pop up on the screen any moment now if it hasn't already. Go ahead and jump over to that to watch it. Thank you guys for tuning into this full card breakdown. Check out the main event and its exclusive video because that's going to give you a bit more in-depth than these full card videos will. So I'll see you guys over there and enjoy. Like the video on your way out. Thank you so much for watching.